One of the great Psalms, as we're working through the Psalter, looking at each word in Hebrew grammatically, in our inductive Hebrew grammar, we come to Psalm 114, which is the great Psalm about the Exodus. We had said before that Psalm 113 through 118 in the Talmud are named the Halal, or praise Psalms of Egypt, because of the reference to Egypt here and the Exodus. So we're going to pick up, we're going to look at each word again grammatically from the Hebrew. We invite anyone to join us by following along in your Hebrew Bible. By the way, this is one of the beautiful Psalms poetically in the Tehillim, in the Psalter. I read a note from the Somsino commentary that says on page 380 on the Psalms, from the point of view of poetry, this psalm is a lyric of surpassing beauty. In construction and language, it is among the finest of the Psalter. And so basically, we're going to go through and look at the beautiful psalm and seek to make application and interpretation as we do so. So we begin, B'tzeit Yisrael miMitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo'ez. Notice, when Israel came forth from Egypt, and repetition, the house of Jacob, from a people who spoke like of a foreign language. It is interesting that this word means a kind of unintelligible speech. And this is looking, no doubt, at what the Israelites heard in Egypt. And so notice, B'tzeit is from the root yatzah, to come forth, the verb. It is a in construct, a verb in construct, an infinitive construct from yatzah. Notice the yod has elided or dropped out with the beit prefix. So we would translate it, when Israel came forth out of Egypt. And then Yisrael miMitzrayim, from Egypt, and the house of Jacob, from a strange language or an unintelligible language. Notice lo'ez is from la'az, that which is like not intelligible, at least to the Israelites. Notice this is a kal participial form, masculine singular, with the holim and tseri. So from a strange language. Hayata Yehuda lekodsho Yisrael mam shelotav. Israel became his sanctuary, and Judah became for his sanctuary, and Israel his dominion. Notice Hayata is your kal perfect, third feminine singular from Haya, and so Judah became for his sanctuary. Notice Kodsho is with the inseparable lamed prepositional prefix, and O, your pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. So Judah became his sanctuary, and Israel his dominion. Notice mam shelotav is mam shelah, meaning dominion, in construct here with av, your pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. So Israel, his dominion. We're looking here at the redeemed people who become God's sanctuary, the sanctuary of the Lord. And, you know, as I think about that, how the redeemed people belong to the Lord, we see this in Exodus 15, verse 17, and Zion is recognized as the Lord's dwelling place. And it's interesting, in the book of Exodus, it says that Israel would become a holy people, a chosen people, a select people. And in terms of New Testament theology, it is also interesting that we have the same language in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. But you are an elect nation, a royal kingdom, a holy nation, a treasured people, that you might declare the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. And Paul in Romans 2 speaks of the true, can I say, spiritual Israel would be the one who fulfills the Torah in the way that they live their lives in Romans chapter 2. I'm reminded as I read that text, I was preaching this morning on that particular chapter of Romans 2, and it's rather interesting. Paul says, as he's arguing for the inner Jew, he says, the Jew is not one outwardly, nor circumcision in the flesh, but the Jew is one in secret, not who, and in the circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not the letter, whose praise is not out of men, but from God. And so it's interesting, in New Testament theology, the Apostle Paul, the Jewish apostle, is writing that it's in the heart that one needs to have circumcision to become the Lord's sanctuary today through what Christ has done. That's Paul's argument, as I'm understanding it from Romans chapter 2. But then he goes on, Hayam Ra'a Vayanos, Hayardain Yesov Achor. That is, the sea saw and fled. And notice Hayam, Yam is sea, Ha is the definite article, and Ra'a is your cow, perfect third masculine singular from the verb Ra'a. So the sea saw and Vayanos and fled. Notice this is from nos, a middle weak verb. And here we have a cow, imperfect third masculine singular from the root nos. So the sea saw and fled. Hayardain Yesov La'achor. And Jordan turned backwards, or turned to that which is behind. Notice the root here is a double ayin root, savav, and the final bait has elided or dropped out. It's the cow imperfect third masculine singular from savav. So the Jordan turned backwards, turned behind. We're no doubt looking at the Exodus here, where the sea became Yabashah, dry land. It's interesting in Genesis 1, the Torah says, let the Yabashah, or the Yabashah, the dry land, appear. And in Exodus chapter 14 and 15, the sea became dry land, Yabashah. And here again, we see the sea dividing, looking back to the Exodus, and Jordan looking at when Israel went into Canaan. And so what a beautiful passage here. He goes on to even talk about nature and nature's reaction. Echarim ragadu elim. Gevaot kivnei son. That is, the mountains skipped as rams. And notice, harim means the mountains. Harim is the plural for mountains, har. And ragadu means they skip, excuse me. Notice they skipped as rams when you see them on the mountains, and they're skipping along, so to speak. Ragadu is from ragad, to skip or dance, and notice it's the cow perfect third common plural from ragad. So the mountains skipped as rams. Givaot, from the plural, feminine plural, meaning the hills. Here we have beautiful parallelism. Kivnei son, as young sheep. And so we're looking here at, again, no doubt, Mount Sinai, and how when God brought forth his revelation after delivering Israel through Yam Suf, the Red Sea, when we come to the book of Exodus 19, we see this kind of imagery that the text is referring back to. And then nature is now being questioned. Ma lacha hayam ki tanus, hayarden tesov la'achor. That is, what to you, O sea, that you flee? Sort of like, what is it to you? What has happened to produce this amazing effect is the question. And the text is addressing Yam, the sea, that you fled. And notice tanus is your cow. It's from the middle weak verb nos, and that you fled. It's the cow imperfect, second person singular with that tav from nos. So what is it? What is it to you, O sea, that you fled? Hayarden tesov la'achor, and Jordan, that you turned to the behind, or you turned backward. Notice tesov is from savav, double ayin again, where the final bait has elided or dropped out. A cow imperfect, second masculine singular from savav. You, Jordan, that you turn backwards from the Lord. And then hecharim targedu cha'elim, gevaot kivnei tzon. What is it, you mountains, that you skipped like rams, or as rams? Again, notice we have the plural in mountains in harim. Here we have the interrogative questions. In you, O mountains, that you skipped. Notice tir kedu is your second masculine plural, cow imperfect, from ragad, that you skipped as rams. And again, we're looking at the way rams, would run and skip around. Now we're looking at the effects of the Lord's presence in causing the Exodus to occur. And Jordan, that you turned backwards. We're no doubt looking at the book of Joshua, where we see that occurring when Israel came through the Yarden, or the Jordan. And then notice from the next, the mountains. What is it to you then, O mountains, that you skip like rams? I referred back to verse 5. And you hills as young sheep. In other words, again, we're looking in verse 6 and 7 now at the mountain and the hills basically are shaking before the divine presence, likening them to rams and young sheep. Now notice verse 7 as we continue. Milifnei Adon choli aretz, milifnei Eloah Yaakov. From before the Lord, tremble at his presence. In other words, tremble, O earth, from before the Lord. And notice chol here is from the middle weak verb chol. And so here we have an imperative addressing the earth, audits, so tremble from before the Lord and from before the God of Jacob. Melifnei Eloha Yaakov. So we're looking again, addressing the mountains and the hills that are shaking and trembling before the God of the universe. And then finally, verse 8, Ha'hofche chatzur agam mayim, halamish lemayono mayim. In other words, the one who turns the rock into a pool of water and the flinty rock to, can we say, fountains, mayono, to its fountains of water. Notice ha-hofeh is from hafak, to turn. It's a participial form. The one who turns, notice the holon, the oval, indicative of a participle. The one who turns the rock into a pool of water, two nouns in construct, agam mayim, and the flint to fountains of water, or the flint to its fountains of water. And notice again, we're looking back at the Exodus, and in particular, I believe at the book of Exodus 17, and also Numbers chapter 20, verse 11. Notice, I'll read from Exodus 17, where we have this, where the Israelites are thirsting, and they're camped at Rephidim, and we're told the people were thirsting for water, and they murmured against Moses. Why is it that you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? And so Moses then, we're told, well, notice verse 5, the Lord said to Moses, go on before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod with which you struck the river and go. Behold, I will stand before you, verse 6, there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. By the way, the place was called Massah and Meribah because of the contention of the children of Israel in tempting the Lord and saying, is the Lord among us? And so we have the name of a place of testing and a place of contention. But what we see here is the Lord's miracle in bringing out of the rock, bringing water. And out of the flinty rock, and we see even in Numbers then, the same thing, the Lord producing water. And I'm reminded as a Christian interpreter and minister as well, that when I make New Testament thought or application of this, I'm reminded how Jesus becomes a type of this. And Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 talks about the rock that followed them in the desert, in the Midbar, at the time of the Exodus. And that rock, Paul says, was Christ. Again, it becomes a type of Jesus who brings the water of life. And we find in the book of John how Christ gives the woman in John 14 water whereby she'll never thirst again. So this is a beautiful picture of the Exodus. And in New Testament theology, the Exodus is Calvary. And Christ is the one who brings, can I say, spiritual life in life-giving water, according to New Testament belief and thought, when one accepts, like the woman at the well, that Jesus, who is the source of the eternal water of life. What a beautiful text, and also with many New Testament allusions as well, like 1 Corinthians 10, and I believe in John chapter 4.